This video is sponsored by Brilliant. This is Derren Brown, mentalist, illusionist, hypnotist, magician, performer, wedding photographer, trickster, and the official spokesperson for the Crave diet. But if you're from across the pond, you might not have heard of this little brown boy. Over here in the land of hope and glory, the man is a household name, a British icon, and probably the best thing that's happened to televised magic ever. And that's saying something coming from me, because I loathe magicians. My mother left my father for a magician, and by habit I project all my anger and distrust towards those quick-fingered, white-gloved cunts. But there's something about Derren Brown that just... Sorry, my room smells of petrol. Gets me. Brown is seemingly able to plant psychological suggestions into people's minds, meaning he can turn you into a puppet, controlling your thoughts and your actions. He can also put anyone into a hypnotic trance, sometimes just by using his voice. But he is mostly known in the UK for performing huge live spectacles that are so large in ambition and scope that it has set the new standard for mentalists and illusionists worldwide. Whereas David Blaine would perform feats of endurance, Derren manipulates regular people to go outside their comfort zones and do amazing things. These events are some of the most memorable and talked about broadcasts in 21st century British television. However, despite his amazing routines, tricks and popularity, Brown has never really managed to break America. But this might be about to change. For the last 20 years, Brown has exclusively worked with Channel 4. But recently, Netflix has bought the international distribution for Brown's last big special, The Push, and his last stage show, Miracle. And as they're known to do, they've slapped a big Netflix original label on them. With this action, it was clear to me that Netflix were testing the waters. If international audiences could latch onto Brown's work, then Netflix could buy more content from the huge Channel 4 back catalogue. It also meant they'd be able to produce brand new Netflix original with the world's most celebrated mentalist. However, as I've discussed on this channel numerous times, a Netflix production isn't always a sign of high quality. They can be cheap, rushed, and lacking in passion. This is where Derren Brown's Sacrifice comes in. The first Brown special not produced with Channel 4. It is without a doubt the worst special Brown has ever made in his 20-year career. But to understand what went wrong, we must first start at the beginning, all the way back in time
Mommy, why is the magnificent Paul Buttersworth round our house again?
Oi, sexy. Come and polish this wand over here, eh?
Paul, why don't you show me what those magic hands can do?
Pick a card, NitPix. Go on, any card. Don't be shy.
Oh, please stop. Not this far back, I beg you!
You're not my real dad!
Now, listen here, son. We're going to be nice to Paul from now on. Understand?
How about a magic trick, eh, son?
Stop this! This is too much! I can't do it, please! I'll do anything, just don't make me go back! The Naughties, a time of mobile phones, the Spice Girls, and of course... This was the humble beginnings for our protagonist, Derren Broderick Brown. Mind control was the first luxurious lick the British public got of the man, and I think it's fair to say we got hooked.
Sorry, what was the stop you were getting off at? This is the dog you're looking for. I think I can tell you what you do for a living.
This series at a first glance might come across as a little schlocky, but appearances can be deceiving. And if you look past the over-the-top graphics, frantic editing and showboating, you'll be astounded and impressed by this garish tiny magical imp with his twinky fingers. He walks from one stranger to the next, playing with them like putty in his hands. Mind Control and his next show, Trick of the Mind, are a series of short vignettes in the standard magic format. These segments can last for mere seconds or as long as 10 minutes. This loose and open approach to structuring his shows allowed a certain freedom. Derren dazzled viewers with a whole range of stunts and interactions that showcased his numerous skills. It was all fresh and never before seen, with each segment being as long as it needed to be. Not a single second of screen time was wasted, and it was unclear which routines would be revisited or made larger. There's a real unrestricted, no rules applied nature to how Derren Brown hosts these shows. He manipulated cashiers at the dog races into paying out on a losing ticket. He made people on trains forget what stop they were getting off at. And he made a guy think he was playing the greatest zombie shooter of all time. This malicious quality reminds us that we're not watching some family-friendly magic show which your mum can really like. It's edgier, it has a punky energy which gave the content real tangible states and real moments of tension. But as he increased in popularity, he also increased in scope and budget, being able to perform much larger and cinematic feats. He moved on from cheekily stealing people's watches to breaking down every parameter of people's reality. And by that, I mean making people shit themselves on TV. This new dark energy that Brown brought to his work started a new phase of fear and paranoia amongst the British public.
There's loads of nutcases outside. Fuck, there's loads of weirdos outside. Oh my god, I know what's going on. It's Derren Brown.
And with that terror, we began to question, was he even human? I imagine one morning, Derren Brown turned to his boyfriend in bed and said, "I'm just gonna go full dark." Derren goes on live television and plays Russian roulette with an actual loaded gun. He then predicts the winning lottery ticket before it's actually announced. He uses hypnotism to make a regular man assassinate Stephen Fry, and then he made 3 ordinary business plebs commit armed robbery. One of them even threatens the guy's family.
Mate, if you move, I swear to God you're dead, mate. If you've got family...
What a fucking nutter. Brown pushed his manipulation skills to the absolute extreme. These shows don't really revolve around why he's doing these dangerous and shocking feats. Derren doesn't need a reason. He does them because he can. And every single one of us was impressed by the man's big dick energy. Brown was constantly breaking the boundaries of conventional factual content, with each special being more controversial than the last. He released a special where he conducted an old school seance. The aim was to see if Victorian techniques would work on regular modern people. And yeah, they did. This became the most complained about broadcast in British television history, as many viewers were disturbed by the notion of contacting the dead. I also imagine viewers were distressed to watch people get paralysed with fear on television. However, I would just call that class entertainment. But Derren Brown wasn't done upsetting Christians yet.
Tonight I'm exploring whether God could be nothing more than an illusion, a belief in something that isn't there.
That's right, an entire special dedicated to disproving God. Somebody get my fedora. He attempts to do this by giving an atheist an existential, emotional, religious orgasm. He makes this stem cell scientist fully change her religious views just by having a 15-minute conversation with her in a church. This might sound like fake news. I mean, no one's that powerful. Well, Brown breaks down every aspect of the interaction so the viewers can understand how he's able to create this response. The specific actions and words he uses are highlighted on the screen so you can feel just as smart as him. These kinetic subtitles that decode his techniques is a common Brownism, featured in most of his work. Another classic Brownism is when the man assigns feelings and emotions to certain sounds or jingles.
I'm associating in Natalie's unconscious the emotion she's feeling with that tapping.
These Brownisms are unique to, well, Brown. And they make his television specials feel so meaty and satisfying. As you aren't simply watching a spectacle take place, you are being invited to understand the workings of it. Another time Derren was put in the proverbial Ofcom doghouse was in his show Trick or Treat, when he manipulated a woman to press a button that she thought would murder a cat. Trick or Treat was a show that really brought out the devil in Brown. Each contributor would sign a contract allowing Brown to do anything he wanted to them, and 50% of the time, it was dark. Brown really embraced the persona of Satan, using pseudo-realism techniques to psychologically mess with people. Someone will be in the middle of something pretty casual and mundane, only to be hit over the head with a Brown attack. It's like a hidden camera prank show, except he's doing some demented dark shit, like making someone think they're dead or think they're a puppet. Derren Brown continued with his tight grasp around the British public, until one day, he had done it all. The limit had been reached, and on top of all his accomplishments, the world looked so small. No longer was he down with the runts. He was high up in the sky, walking amongst the clouds. For years, they had thought he was Satan, but no one ever wondered what he thought of himself. What kind of man would you have to be to take an ordinary, unthreatening simpleton and place them in a fully constructed reality? A reality they believe to be genuine. A reality you have full control of. You choose the location, dress the environments, choose the actors, and write the lines for their characters. A real-life Truman Show. This became the new format for a Derren Brown special. He'd take an individual and create fictional worlds around them. This would all build towards manipulating that person into making a terrifying decision between doing the right thing and the wrong. He justifies putting his contributors through emotional torture on the pretense of teaching them a lesson or punishing them for not making the most out of life. Doesn't that remind you of anyone else? You know, a certain supernatural figure, usually depicted as a huge man in the sky with a long white beard. My Uncle Nigel. In Hero at 30,000 Feet, he takes a man who's terrified of flying, psychologically conditions him to be more fearless, and then puts him on a plane full of actors, stages a serious crisis, and then he's asked to help land the plane. Once he agrees to fly the plane, Brown jumps at him, puts him in a trance and wakes him up in a cockpit simulator. With this new emphasis on the surroundings manipulating the victim, instead of Derren Brown manipulating the victim, Brown's charisma and personality, which acted as the central anchor for his other shows, take a backseat, and in its place the focus becomes more on narrative. This isn't to say that the footage that is put out isn't insanely impressive or entertaining. As I said earlier, no one else is making work anything like this. But with the focus on a basic narrative and a clear moral message, the beats become predictable and preachy, as we typically go through a standard hero story arc. With this new focus also brings forth a loss of identity, since now a lot of time is spent thrusting a naive contributor into surreal environments with over-the-top cartoonish performances. These sequences are heavily based off popular films, and instead of being blown away by Brown's abilities and techniques, it becomes, oh look, they're doing a Donnie Darko thing. Oh look, they're doing Fight Club. Oh look, they're doing Ocean's 11. The material is detached. He stopped making shows that were raw and controversial and moved on to dumb shit like The Great Art Robbery, where he makes old people steal a painting in a heavily controlled environment. What's the obligatory moral message in this one, Derren?
My aim with this show is to remind us that older people have far richer stories to tell than the rest of us.
Is this because you're bold now? Sometimes his justification for psychological brutalization will be in the form of scientific discovery. In The Guilt Trip, he uses weaponized guilt to make an ordinary man falsely confess to a murder. He used him like a chess piece to inform the viewers about the reality of false confessions. But at this point, Derren's manipulated people to commit actual murder in 2 separate shows. He's also made people predict the future, eat glass, and believe they were living in a real-life zombie apocalypse. If Derren Brown wanted to, he could use his sets and actors and hypnotic abilities to make a YouTuber cover his room in petrol. That being said, nearly every one of these specials will cut away from the ongoing narrative to show Brown interacting with members of the public, doing tricks or giving us some historical context. He also puts in plenty of delicious Brownisms.
So whenever you hear that sound, whenever you hear that ringtone, your mind will shift to this marksman state. Pressing the button on here, that creates a bell sound that will play through the hotel. Now what will happen is he'll begin to associate the feeling of guilt with the squeeze on the shoulder and with the bell sound.
When you hear this jingle, you'll light the match and ignite the petrol. This is what you get, Paul Buttersworth, for fucking my mother, you slimy, wambering magic man.
And now this leads us to the Netflix special Sacrifice. For many Americans, this could be their introduction to Derren Brown, which makes my tiny mouth scream out in agony at the idea of that. Because this special has been stripped down to base Brown. It's all about making a racist man take a bullet for a Mexican man. It's dragged out, boring, and lacking in anything truly impressive. There's not even a card trick or a moment when Brown reads someone's mind. It's so incredibly diluted and filtered to a point where this special is as plainly friendly and welcoming as possible. It's like it's been stripped of all its meat. There isn't even a measly bit of marrow to suck from the bone. The most impressive thing that Brown does is make this guy stick a needle through his hand, which he did to Robbie Williams 5 years ago. I feel robbed. Many sequences feel like they were lifted straight from a weird BuzzFeed video.
Do you remember at the start of all this, you did a cheek swab?
Yes, I do.
So what we got from that were your DNA test results. 0.9% Mexico.
That's incredible.
What is this, Oprah? It feels like a cheap knockoff of a Brown special. He puts a fake microchip in his neck and then gets him to do some breathing techniques. That is all that is done to build up to the big event, when he's going to stop being a big racist bad man and become a good person. But the big event is so manipulated and such a contorted view of reality that this stunt is just laughable. It's like watching a shit episode of Breaking Bad.
Bill, I got 1 bullet in this gun.
Please, Rick.
It's gonna be you or him. Who's it gonna be?
Rick, you can't
Who's
do
it
this.
gonna
Come on.
be?
Please, Rick, please, 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 please.
Basically, to conclude this, I'm just a little worried about Derren Brown. In the beginning, there was one actor pretending to be a money handler with a locked off street. This was a realistic simulation of something that you would normally see in London. And when these ordinary people pulled out a gun on them, it was unnerving and fascinating. Now we have huge B-movie stories, narratives that feel like they belong in sitcoms. We'll watch actors tell someone to conceal a dead body. Brown will reveal a secret twin that we didn't know about. Or a man will be forced to sit in a car and watch someone get executed. One time Brown filmed himself for 7 hours flipping a coin. He kept shooting and kept going until it landed on heads 10 times in a row. That level of commitment for just a small sequence is something that is definitely missing in his newer material. And if he carries on making bland Netflix originals, we'll stop seeing Derren Brown like a god and start to see him like James Corden. We'll be able to chat about him then and there, and it will be great here and now. But in 2 years we'll look back at him and go, ugh, why were we into that? But what do you think about Derren Brown? Let me know down below in the comments, and make sure to bloody subscribe while you're at it. If you're interested in Derren Brown, if you take delight in working out your brain muscles, I wholeheartedly recommend Brilliant, who kindly sponsored this video. Brilliant is a fun, interactive problem-solving website which allows you to push yourself in a whole range of ways. Brilliant teaches you to think like a scientist by guiding you through problems. They take complex mathematical and scientific concepts, break them up into delicious bite-sized bits, where they present clear thinking in each part and then build back up to a sexy conclusion. I mostly found myself gravitating towards the logic puzzles, because in my own deluded world I like to think I could be Sherlock Holmes using logic and deduction to solve problems. But maybe you're more of a computational biology kind of guy, or maybe you're the sort of lady who loves to dabble in number theory. Cheeky! Either way, Brilliant will for sure have something for you. So why don't you sign up for free today at brilliant.org/nitpix or follow the links in the description below. Also, to sweeten it even more for you, if you're one of the first 200 people to click the link, you'll get 20% off the annual premium subscription. So help out yourself and help out the channel by giving Brilliant a go. It's legit brilliant. Oh no, it's the jingle. No. Oh god, the petrol! Oh no, the fire! My skin is burning!